one. Okay.
All right, hello, and welcome to our presentation on the student assistant position in Rome. My name is John Cavana. I was a student assistant in the fall Rome class of 2018, and John Chiardi and Anna Girak were student assistants last semester in the fall of 2020. We're really excited to share with y'all our impressions of this job, and we think that it's a really exciting opportunity for you to deepen your relationships with your classmates, with your professors, and just to make the most of your Rome semester. We understand right from the start that the semester might not look exactly as we describe it here because each of us has had different semesters, but we hope to provide as full a picture as possible. So getting started with the next slide, please. I'm going to be going over an overview of the essay position, and then I'll be going to look at the early arrival tasks that student assistants have, and basically what a normal duty night would look like. So the first note here is that the essay position doesn't require work study, so anyone can apply to be an essay. Next slide, please. The basic idea of being an essay is to be a peer leader. So that means a lot of your responsibilities don't involve kind of cracking down based on the rules on your fellow classmates, but just setting a good example for them, making sure to be attentive, respectful, and just paying attention to the basic rules that we have in the Rome program. Next slide, please. So an essay is kind of like being an RA, but it's less responsibility and especially less disciplinary responsibility. So you are put in this position in your class where you're kind of over your class in the sense that you have these responsibilities and people know that they can go to you to ask questions and to get information, but you don't have to worry about actually disciplining your fellow peers. All you do is just observe what they do, and if you have to report maybe a violation of the student handbook, then you give it to the other authorities on the Rome campus. Next slide. Before you get to the Rome semester, there will be a total of 8 hours of pre-departure training in Irving. So some of that will just be classroom preparation, and some of it will be CPR training and that kind of thing, just to get you ready for any situation you might need. Next slide, please. Essays do come early, 2 days early, and they leave 1 day late. And this is one of the first responsibilities that we'll talk about. You come early and you have certain tasks. Next slide, please. So these tasks include things like making sure the rooms are prepared for students, making sure that all of the books have been placed in the students' room and that they'll have everything they need to start the semester. Getting there early is also a lot of fun because when you're there early and you kind of adjust to the jet lag after those 2 days, then all of your friends come and they're jet lagged, but you're not. You're already experienced to the Rome campus. You're already acclimated to the Rome campus. And then as well, when you stay a day later, that also is just a really fun time to kind of close out the semester, spend time just with you and the other Rome staff. And so both of these, the early arrival and the later departure were a lot of fun for me. Next slide, please. Essays are on duty on a rotation. This is once or twice a week. So you can expect that you'll just be sitting out. Usually it's right outside the dorms in my semester, where we were just sitting there. We sometimes would have to make sure people came in by curfew, and we really didn't have to do much. We could do homework, we could chat, but the most important part of that was that we were there if anyone needed us. And this is another aspect of the essay position that personally I really enjoyed. Just that my fellow classmates knew that if they needed anything, they could come talk to me, and I could hopefully help them out with whatever they needed. And next slide. Additionally, depending on how the long weekend schedule works, you'll be on duty for 1 long weekend. And so your total duty nights will be 21 to 23 nights over the semester. For me, this came at a really great time, and also for the other essays in my semester, they really enjoyed their long weekend. Some of them hosted events, some of them just spent the time to rest and to maybe catch up on some studying. But it really was a nice time to recharge so that I could devote myself more fully to the next trip that we took. And now to talk more about the schedule of duty nights and duty responsibilities, I'll pass this on to John.
Thanks, John. So like he was talking about earlier, you're on duty about once or twice a week, and that includes 1 long weekend. It was a little different last semester for the fall because our entire schedule got moved around. But usually there, if you're taking class trips, you're also on duty there, but there's typically a Thanksgiving break for the fall roam semester, and then a spring break for the spring roamers, and you don't have to be on duty during those breaks. You're allowed to leave campus, go off, travel like everyone else. Where it's different though is on the class trips, which will be on the next slide, I think. So for our semester last fall, we really only did one class trip. We didn't go to Greece. Instead, we went down to southern Italy and Sicily. But our duties were the same as it would have been on a Greece trip or a northern Italy trip. And basically what it meant is you were on duty just like you were on campus about 1 or 2 of the nights during the whole trip, depending on how long the trip was. And all that meant is that from, I think the hours were like 9 to 12 or 9:30 to 12:30. You just sit in the hotel lobby and you check people in as they were coming back before the curfew that night. And some people, they might be worried about, oh, I'm missing out on all this time with my friends. I promise you, it's not that big of a deal at all. You have the rest of the trip to go out at night and hang out with them. And by the time your duty night rolls around, you're typically so exhausted that you just want to take the night off anyway. So, and it's not like you're totally missing out either, because if you're sitting in the lobby, basically every time I did it, I had friends there sitting with me and talking with me. People are going in and out of the hotel. So you're not really missing out on much of the fun in that regard. And like I said, it's only one or 2 times during the trip where you have to do that. Like I said, you can still have fun on those trips. Next slide. And in addition, on those trips, we take buses everywhere, to the different sites and from hotel to hotel. So one of your duties, in addition to being on duty, is you have to stay an extra 2 minutes after everyone gets off the bus, sweep the bus, make sure no one's left anything on there important. You help pass out tickets to museums, collect tickets, just kind of any miscellaneous duties that Ben or the resident coordinators or the OSA director will need help with. You'll help them with those, and it can be anything with cleaning up to passing things out. There's Monday night meetings every week where for us it was in a big tent for part of the time. For you guys, hopefully it'll be back in the Aula Magna, which is the big classroom on campus. And each essay will switch off on a week-to-week basis and call roll during those Monday night meetings, which is another one of those smaller duties. Next slide. Like I said, the duty times are typically 9:30 to 11:30 or 9:30 to 12:30, depending on if it's a school night or not. And like I said, it's not like you're missing out. Don mentioned earlier, you can sit out on the piazza or in the dorm and talk with people and chat with people and get homework done. While you're on duty, you go around about every half hour, sometimes every hour, depending on what you work out with the resident coordinator that night. You guys will switch off, typically making a round every half hour. And that just means you walk around the entirety of campus, make sure everyone's safe, following quiet hours, open house hours, which have to do with whether or not you can have alcohol in public. And for us, it was for Anna and I last semester, and we had to deal with some of the COVID protocols, making sure people were distancing or had their mask on, and just reminding them, to stay safe. Like John mentioned earlier, you're not in charge of discipline. If you see an incident that's persistent and in an obvious violation of the handbook, you write that person up You give it to Ben or the RCs, and then they deal with it. You're done. You don't have to deal with the disciplinary side of it. And I found that if you're respectful about it, your peers respect you, and they totally get it. There's no animosity, when you're reminding someone to follow protocols or writing someone up. Like I said, you have to write people up, and the reports really don't take that long, maybe 5 minutes at the most. So it's not that much extra work, and you're not in charge of sanctions. That's the duty of the resident coordinators and the OSA director. This wasn't as prevalent for Anna uh, and my semester, so maybe John could pitch in a little bit for this part, because our semester was so kind of crazy and up in the air that we didn't have time to really plan events. But I think most of the time the essays help with different things on campus. So John, if you have any stories about this.
Thanks, John. We did have community events, which were just, we would organize each one event for the semester. I did a poker night. Someone did a sip and paint, where we had wine and then painted the living wall, which is the wall that you paint after the Greece trip on campus. And basically, you might just plan some kind of fun event that can help bring all of your peers together. And it was a really great time. Back to you, John.
Yeah, and finally, you have to meet for 1 hour every Monday at lunch with the resident coordinators and the OSA director. And this is actually great because you get to go first for lunch, so you don't have to wait in this big long line for 20 minutes to get your food. So that's one perk, is every Monday you get to go first for lunch. And you just chat about the kind of what's coming up for the week or the next few weeks, if you have trips coming up, or if there's different things that people have seen on campus. We're having trouble with a certain recurring incident. So it's not too bad, and you have one to two office hours per week of work. This is again a little different for Anna and I. Mostly, it included taking temperatures before lunch or delivering meals to people in isolation. That was kind of our extra work during the week, but it wasn't anything too burdensome. And I think this is on to Anna now. She can talk about some of the difficulties and some of the perks of this position as well.
Okay, thanks, John. So there are definitely a couple difficulties with this position for sure. It is just a little bit of time going places during the week. And obviously, your Rome semester, it'll always feel a little bit short. And so giving up a little bit of time during your week can be hard. There's also just difficulties in managing your friendships, your relationships with other people. Maybe once or twice in a semester, you'll have to say no to some little small thing. It'll seem big in the moment, but definitely looking back, there's nothing I really regretted due to this position. If you could move to the next slide, please. As far as benefits, I would say there are definitely a lot. One of the biggest benefits that I experienced was just being able to talk to the RCs, and then just being able to talk about their insights into the Rome semester. They have a lot more experience than we do. They see a lot of Rome classes go in and out, and they really have a lot to offer. That was just one of my experiences. And then just as far as having that extra money to be able to spend on weekends was really, really great, knowing that I could do it just a little bit. If you could move it to the next slide. It did not really interfere with my travel. I also experienced the staff being really, really flexible about if I needed to come back a day late, maybe switching a day that I was on duty was completely doable, and they were really helpful with that. If you can move to the next slide, I would say this is definitely something John and I can give insight on, is just you're going to have to be really adaptive during the semester. A lot of things just changed as we went. But one thing that was really nice about being in this position was we usually knew things even just a little bit before, and we're able to help people and prepare them for whatever was going on. So being in this position was, I think, really helpful for both us and for our fellow classmates. If you could move to the next slide. I would say just about all of this is going to help you. You're going to have to be personable and be able to help other people, but also be able to manage your time as well as possible, and be able to take initiative in just situations that might be a little bit difficult to deal with. So as I mentioned before, having a little bit of extra money, especially in this Rome semester, can be really, really helpful, especially as you're getting towards the end of your semester and realizing you didn't budget quite properly. So that's really nice. And it begins even before you leave for Rome. So you will have some preparation, as John mentioned, just before you go to your semester. Some of it includes CPR training and just general training, and then you will be getting to campus early. Next slide. Just there are a few qualifications. First of all, GPA. As far as that goes, obviously 2.5 is required, and then 3.0 is preferred, especially for this past semester. Next slide, please. So just as far as all of the application, it really wasn't terribly difficult. A lot of it was pretty intuitive and simple. There is an essay that you'll want to start thinking about. And then if you could go to the next couple of slides. You'll want, is this still required? You'll want to talk to your past or current RA and see if you can get a letter of recommendation for them. And then next slide, please. So applications will be due then the 17th, and then afterwards will be interviews. And if you go to the next slide, I think this is probably one of my favorite on the left with Nino. It's a really fun position to have, just in all honesty. I don't regret having it for 1 minute, so I hope you apply or at least look into it.
Okay, thank you all. So you will be getting emails. Check your emails from udrome@udallas.edu for the link to the online application. And we hope that you will apply for this position. Thank you.